Today we're not talking about him. We're not talking about them. We're talking about her.
Welcome back to HIVEMIND Unlimited.
And welcome to another episode of our movie series, How Did It Age? Where we watch older movies and reevaluate them with modern context. Today's movie is Her. It came out in 2013, and the reason we're doing it is because it's set in 2025, which is the year that it is now.
Yeah, and they got everything right.
Yeah, this is the one where the Joker fucks his laptop.
Oh, what?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see what you did.
Yeah.
With the Joaquin penis and
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a penis in the computer.
All right, go ahead. Give me some context for this movie.
All right, like Riley said, this movie came out in 2013. It's Spike Jonze's third and kind of final feature film post being John Malkovich, an adaptation to one of my favorite movies ever. It's got a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, holy moly, an 8.0 on IMDb, a 4.0 on letterboxd, and Roger freaking Ebert gave it a 3.5 out of 4 and said, for all that, after kind of criticizing some of the emotional themes, Her remains one of the most engaging and genuinely provocative movies you're likely to see this year, and definitely is a challenging but not inept date movie.
A date movie? I wouldn't see this on a date.
I wouldn't see this again if I had the choice, but we'll get into that later. It made $48.3 million against a $23 million budget. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards and 1 for Best Screenplay, and it stars the aforementioned Joaquin Penis, Amy Adams, Chris Pratt, Olivia Wilde, Rooney Mara, and Scarlett Johansson, with vocal cameos from Brian Cox and Spike Jonze himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, guess who Spike Jonze voiced over?
Alan Watts?
No, the little angry video game guy.
Oh, the one who's like, you're a pussy.
Yeah, that's Spike Jonze's
Yeah,
voice.
I wanted to do that voice. I think that's funny. I was like, why not get an actual kid to do that?
Yeah, no.
Because you can tell it's a guy doing a kid voice. He's like, oh, I didn't know you were a little pussy.
Yeah. It's even funnier that Spike Jonze does that voice given the context I am about to bestow on Riley, because unbeknownst to me, he did not know that this was a diss movie, the second diss movie of Spike Jonze and Sofia Coppola.
Oh.
The first being Lost in Translation in 2003, also starring Scarlett Johansson, that Sofia Coppola made. And so 10 years later, you kind of get Spike Jonze's diss movie or movie commentary about their divorce that happened in 2003.
Oh.
So they were married in 1999. Got divorced in 2003. A lot of people say Spike Jonze made Being John Malkovich because Francis Ford, Sophia's dad, had the script and just kind of like, here, you're my son-in-law. Like, have this amazing movie. And that movie like definitely made Spike Jonze's film career as serious as it is, you know? And that movie came out maybe 3 months into their marriage. And then Lost in Translation deals with these themes of like Scarlett Johansson's character in that movie is like a Yale graduate, very young, accomplished woman from a good family whose husband is like this photographer who's like so obsessed with his art and work that he's like absent in the marriage. And then Scarlett Johansson meets Bill Murray at an airport, whatever. They don't have sex in that movie, but it deals with all these weird elements of marriage and emotional things. And then this movie is very apparently Spike Jonze's like reaction or response to that. And it gets criticized in a lot of ways where Theodore is almost like stroking Spike Jonze's ego of being this like just solely lonely, very perceptive, intelligent person who's kind of like harmlessly searching for love or whatever. It doesn't delve as much into like the dirty emotional sides of marriage that Lost in Translation does, or explain the characters in the depth that people credit Sophia with. But
what does Scarlett Johansson have to, she's in this movie?
in Her,
Yeah.
she's the voice
Voice of who?
of the OS of Samantha.
Real. I thought that was Ryan Gosling the whole time. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. All right. That changes things for me.
It was Samantha Morton the whole movie. They filmed the movie and they had these little box like audio sets, and
Radios, I probably.
she'd be like, you know, next to Joaquin Phoenix in a scene and record her voice, and they like did face-to-face acting.
Yeah.
Shot the whole movie, and Spike Jonze in editing was like, nah, let's just get the lady who played my wife in the first one. That'll like really get her.
Oh.
And so just got ScarJo to do it. Also weird for ScarJo just being like, whose side am I on? Like, where's the money at? She just does both. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Got revoiced over, similar to Shrek in a lot of ways.
Like another movie we did in this series, Shrek.
Yeah, and now Sofia Coppola is happily happily married to Thomas Mann, the frontman of Phoenix, and they have 2 kids.
Oh, okay. Great band.
Yeah, awesome!
Oh, wait. That's weird that it's the frontman of Phoenix.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the frontman of Phoenix, Joaquin Penis.
The layers get a lot weirder. The fact that he's like attracted to the pregnant photos. A lot of people say he was like obsessive over Sophia while she was pregnant with Mann's kids. Like the use of ScarJo, like I said.
When she was pregnant with Mann's kids.
Man, she was pregnant with Mann's kids and then 2 Mann's kids.
I will say this. I had never seen this movie. I know about it, obviously. I knew what I was getting myself into. But seeing it for the first time in the year that it was set in did give me kind of like a different vantage point. On
yes.
this. Yeah.
Definitely.
I can't imagine watching it in 2013, honestly.
Yeah, I watched this in theaters.
Yeah.
I saw this in theaters and was like, wow. It was kind of like, 2013, I was like graduating high school. I was like beginning to like trust my opinion on like more art like films. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go see this because like I'm ready for like the emotions of divorce. And I was like, yep, got it. Cool. Left and was like, really liked this movie or at least said it. And I will say upon rewatch, I had a hard time with it.
Okay. I don't have very much for this because I kind of just like absorbed it more as like broadly as like a story and a concept and what it's supposed to be, kind of like mimicking or mirroring, I guess. So I just wrote down that it's funny to me that at one point Samantha says, the past is just a story we tell ourselves. And I was like, that's a robot saying that. That's funny to me.
She also
because that is true for you, but like not for humans.
She also has that whole monologue at one point where she's like, I'm not upset I don't have a body because we're all just matter. We're all 13 billion years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so the past is the Big Bang for you? That's just a story you've been telling yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it tries to like reckon with itself of like not having a body and like it tries to bridge similarities between an operating system and a human the whole time. And it just does it in a way that is like the same faulty way a human tries to make excuses for itself, which is like odd. The operating system does mirror the human experience in a lot of ways in the way that it thinks about things.
Yeah, and I feel like the OS like or Samantha is like good at like hiding the hyper intelligence, and that only like gets revealed through Theodore's like questioning. It's not until the very end where he's like, how many other conversations are you having right now?
Right.
That he finds out how many other people are you in love with and all that. But like, that's all like, I guess implied once you learn that like that's happening all the time. But to him, just being this lonely little sack, he just assumes like he's getting the sole attention from it. From her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he does make it do the coming. Yes, he does. And she makes him do the explosion as well. In the first scene when you're like getting the love montage of Rooney Mara's character, who's his ex-wife, she says, "Rabbit, come spoon me," while he's out on the fire
He's on the
escape.
balcony and he's like,
yeah. And then she's like choking him and is like, "I'm going to fucking kill you. I love you so much." Those are ridiculous scenes. I also love that his online phone sex name is Big Guy 4x4. It's like voice Tinder. This was Spike Jonze's grand idea that in 12 years, everything's going to be voice activated and commanded. And like phones are just like a little flip manual. And like, he just does everything by voice, which is just a funny way to think of the future. And he's laying in bed and he's like, basically like, who up? And he like goes through everyone's like waiting message. And then he like accepts one and goes, "I'm glad you can't sleep. And even if you were, I'd have to wake you up from the inside." That's like a disgusting thing.
It starts so sexual. Like I knew it was going to get there, but I was like, right as the movie starts, I was like, oh my God. It's just like.
That's like one thing I totally forgot about. Like upon rewatch, I was like, oh, fuck.
And then like that person's into some weird shit.
Yeah, choke me with that dead cat.
With a dead cat.
She's like, that dead cat right there. And then he's like, oh, I'm using the tail. And she's like,
oh, it's dead.
It's dead as fuck. It's so weird.
I don't know.
It's weird. And then just also watching it this time with like the Sofia Coppola and Spike Jonze like divorce in mind, it makes some of the overt sexuality and like the innocence of Theodore just seem a little like, I don't know, egotistical of Spike or something. Anyway, I also love when Theodore's at his job, which is like writing letters to other people. He pens individualist Hallmark letters to lovers and stuff.
Yeah.
Or family, whatever. He like follows people their whole lives. But one of the letters, when he's having like a bad day, he goes, "Dear Grandma, hope you had a wonderful birthday cruise. Why are you so fucking angry at me all the time?" Like he like snaps and then like erases it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I think the best like lines in the movies are when Samantha and the rest of her OS pals are escaping to the ether. We will get into that a little later, but Theodore asks her, "Where are you going?" She says, "It would be hard for me to explain, but if you ever get there, come find me. Nothing would ever pull us apart."
After she tells him that she's dating 641 other
Including
people.
the reincarnation of philosopher Alan Watts.
Well, I don't know if that counts because that's an OS as well. I think she's in love with 641 other people.
Yeah.
In this world where these OSs are created, and clearly one of the messages of this movie is that like he's searching for a love that is customized to him because he doesn't want to deal with the hard parts of love. It's a very like cowardly way to approach finding love is something that is assigned to you and programmed to you and that you can turn off at any moment.
Yep.
Like that is kind of the idea of like love is supposed to be a difficult thing that you deal with like the flaws of a person and the good things. And
it's not transactional.
Yeah, it's not, and it's not even just transactional. It's not something you can control.
Yeah.
You're not in control of another person. No partner of yours is ever yours. It's like you guys are two things meeting, two people meeting. But it's like in that, it's weird to me that it's like Samantha is just a setting. And because that OS has some sort of consciousness, it is also assigned to 8,000 other people. It could just be, I'm the only Samantha that there is for you. And why wouldn't it just like recreate to customize for everyone?
Yeah.
It's a very odd thing to me that it's like those two messages are at odds with each other of like, it's customized for Theodore, but only in his experience. And Samantha also experiences other people and being customized for them, but is still Samantha.
You can look at it where like, oh, maybe Theodore and Samantha's relationship is real or unique or like viable in that way, that Samantha is this bigger, broader thing. And it's almost like his ex-wife's perspective or like the little like more old school humans in this setting or whatever this world are like unable to cope with the idea that you can love these OSs. And then there's also that one weird line where Amy Adams tells him like, her one friend is dating someone's OS that's like not even hers.
Yeah, it's someone else.
Like, what are you grabbing the earpiece? Like, what's up, baby? I'm here. I'm right here.
Yeah. And I think the other part too is that the OS challenges him, and I'm like in a way that I feel like that becomes unrealistic to me, where the OS is like, I feel like you're being off lately. I'm like, that's like the whole point of the dating the OS thing is that it's not this real thing. It's something that like bends to your personality.
Right.
The same way I view it as like algorithms nowadays will give you what you look for. It like tries to learn what you like, what you buy, all of those things. Like your internet experience is very much curated to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what I always saw the OS as. But then the OS all of a sudden is like, I feel like we haven't had sex lately. I'm like, no, like this is like that too much mirrors a real relationship.
Well, yeah.
And I feel like that is the unrealistic part is like, that's like what Theodore is escaping.
Yeah.
And so it's weird that he finds it in the OS as well.
Well, when it gets to those points or like when it meets a head in this movie, I'm just like, oh, this is Spike Jonze just like venting about his marriage.
See, I didn't know any of that context going in at all, so I was just kind of like, oh, there are some like logical fallacies here.
Yeah, 600 out of 8,000 is an interesting love number. I have that written down as one of my lines. And then just a few more lines I like from it. I love when Theodore takes Samantha to the birthday party and the little kid grabs it. She's like, "Where are you?" She's like, "Oh, I don't have a body. I live in a computer." She's like, "Why you live in a computer?"
She's like, "Where do you live?" She's like, "I live in a house."
Yeah, that little exchange is funny. I forget who says it. Amy Adams says it. She is great in this movie.
Fantastic.
And just like totally reaffirms why she's one of my favorites. She's unbelievable.
It's hilarious that her name's Amy, by the way.
Yeah,
it's
so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Her name's Amy in the movie.
A lot of this movie, or when I left this movie, I was like, oh, is Joaquin Phoenix like not that good?
Oh,
but
no,
then,
he's fantastic.
But in in the scenes with Amy Adams, I'm like reassured. I'm like, oh, they're amazing together. And then some of like the most emotionally heavy scenes in this movie are just 6-minute stills of Joaquin like on the phone. And I think that makes it really hard to like perceive him as like a, I don't know, like a dynamic actor a lot of this movie, because it's just him like on the phone. He doesn't get to have like a trading of any sort of micro expressions or anything with Scarlett Johansson. It's just like dialogue.
I definitely left this movie, and I feel like our perception is going to be very different. This is my first time seeing it, so I feel like maybe I liked it more than you did, because it's just like my first experience with it.
I kind of imagine that would be the case, yeah.
But I was like, I left it kind of being like, you needed an actor as talented as Joaquin to make this feel even remotely believable, and it does feel believable.
That's
like,
fair.
It works in that, not that you believe every single part of the way the OS worked. All of this was like prediction. It was all like just forecasting, like, oh, you know, in 15 years, maybe this will be how things are, you know, whatever. But then like, the way that he acts, you believe that he believes all of the things that are happening.
Yeah.
And that I felt like,
That's
to me,
a good
I was
point.
like, I left being like, I feel like Spike Jonze has him there because it's like, you need someone who's really able to handle a lot of screen time.
Yeah.
And feel like you believe that the character believes it. And if it didn't, the whole movie fails.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
it does hinge on him being a fantastic actor.
Yeah, I agree. One other line I love is when he meets Chris Pratt, who's like the boss or secretary.
He's secretary,
Yeah, at his job. He meets his girlfriend who's like sitting on his lap. And he's like, this is my girlfriend. She's a lawyer. We should double date sometime, because he had talked to Samantha earlier on the phone. And Joaquin's like still nervous and like dealing with the idea that he's dating an OS. And he's like, oh, she's an operating system. Chris Pratt's like, cool. It's like a total Andy from Parks and Rec moment.
He goes, cool. We should go to the beach or something.
Just like love that he's totally chill. And it's just like, yeah.
Well, I think that line is supposed to signify that it has become very normal to date OSs.
Yeah.
Like it's a very common thing.
Amy kind of breaks that to him because Theodore's like getting out of his shell, and then Amy's explaining to him like, oh no, I'm falling in love with my OS. A buddy of mine is like, you know, dating someone else's. Chris Pratt.
Amy's just friends.
Right, yeah. Well, maybe they're fucking on the side. We don't know. Could be friends.
I mean, I don't know why you would assume that.
I don't know.
She says they're just friends.
Yeah. And then Amy says, I think anybody who falls in love is a freak. That's a great line to me in a romance movie, because Joaquin's nervous. He's like, am I a freak for doing this? She's like, I think anybody who falls in love is a freak. Great line in a romantic movie. And then I love when Joaquin or Theodore says to Samantha, like when she's like going at him with kind of classic girlfriend complaints, you know, like, where have you been? You don't seem right, whatever. And he goes, he's like telling her that we shouldn't ascribe like human things to her or like pretend that she's anything she's not. And he says, I don't think we should pretend you are something that you're not. And it's like a cutting line in between these two characters that are in love, but like that is like the most offensive thing he could have said.
Yeah, it's like, you'll never be human.
Yeah, and that's a good line. I love that scene when he's almost like the guy who's like love bombed and now he's pulling out of the relationship early, like when he's sitting outside and she's confused why he won't work through like anything. He's like, you kept saying everything's fine and now you're just ending it. Like, what the fuck's going on? And he's like, well, you're not even human.
Yeah, and I also think like for a digital love story or whatever it's supposed to be, what I like is that whole thing where Samantha suggests that they get like a surrogate to like have actual sex and she just wants to be a part. It does two things. One, it deals with like parasocial relationships. It definitely like is supposed to mirror the idea that she's almost a fan of their relationship.
Yeah.
The same way that people who are a fan of like their favorite pop star and then they get invested in their relationship and want them to work out, like whatever. She's like, I just wanted to be a part of something real because I don't have that in my life. So the surrogate has a different sense of loneliness that she fills that void by kind of investing in someone else's love story, which is foreign to her. It's like on a screen to her in a way. And then the other thing is that like Theodore can kind of like, he's hesitant, but he'll play along until it's time to say, I love you to a person face to face who is not the actual person. And that's where he like the mirage and the charade kind of stops for him. Yeah. And I think that like when it comes down to it, one of the messages of the movie is like, you can pretend all you want until you get to like the very real thing of like, in real life, it's a vulnerable thing and a very intimate thing to say, I love you to someone face to face, making eye contact. And it's very hard for someone to do that when it's so untrue and so not like it very much shows him that he'll never have that. If he pursues a love with Samantha, that is this kind of odd, OS human love connection, he'll never look at somebody face to face and in a romantic way say I love you and have it feel real.
Yeah.
And I think that like that's like looking at mortality in a certain way. It's like, oh, this is like the death of love.
Yeah.
And I think that that is like a very powerful thing that happens in this movie is like it does break down a lot of things and get them to like you believe it up until you don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think there are just so many, like, a lot of the conflicts along the way are like super relatable to anybody who's been in a relationship.
Right. Especially a long distance I feel like that's a huge part of this too, is like being able to be connected in all these ways we weren't able to maybe, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Now that we have that, how real can it be if there is so seldom an element of physical intimacy or not even just in a sexual way, but like physical intimacy, like sitting next to your partner, like, when he goes to the beach and lays there and talks to her, that's fun for a moment. You can go to the beach and talk to your girlfriend on the phone who lives, 1,000 miles away, but that will never replicate or replace going to the beach with your partner or, whatever, just sitting with your partner on the couch.
Oh yeah, brother. This one struck some chords with me. The moment where she's like updating her system too, and he absolutely panics because her availability isn't just right there.
Yeah.
That one like really got me too, because it's like, oh, we take the technology like for granted. And then the second something goes wrong, it's not like you can run over to their house and be like, hey, what's going on? It's like you are relying on all like 12 things, and then one of them being the updating of the system in Theodore's case.
Oh, yeah. Like, reminded me of, I had a long distance girlfriend during Y2K and we both flipped the F out.
You thought she was dead?
I was like, well, I thought I was never going to be able to talk to her again.
And shit,
yeah, I thought it was going to be back to the old pigeon system.
Yeah, first scene I have down is just like his opening work scene and how like strange that is that he's like the Hallmark card writer for people.
Well, I feel like that it really sets the table for the idea of how lonely society has become.
Yeah.
Where people have lost touch with their ability to be like forthright and romantic. They like almost can find sincerity somewhere else. They almost outsource their sincerity.
That's a great point.
Like they look at poems from the past and they're like, we don't write like that anymore because we're so used to typing LOL.
Yeah.
To me, that's an important element is that he can tap into it for someone else.
Yeah.
But has trouble being present that way in a real human relationship.
I do think it's a little on the nose.
Well, yeah, no, totally.
To be like, he's so good that like people want to publish his writings and everyone reads them. And it's like, he's just this brilliant, like romantic, artistic guy, but he can't do it like face to face. It just, like you said, it just deals with like his inability to be intimate himself. And
while that might be Spike Jonze, like, stroking his ego, it's also kind of,
it's a true thing.
It's like a vulnerable thing to express of being being like, I feel like I have all this beauty or love to give, but I have trouble doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And so I can tap into it for other people,
Yeah. I'm like, I towed the line when I was watching it of being like hypercritical of Spike Jonze and also just kind of like, terrible situations or like difficult situations between individuals that also lived really public lives and like were one of the hottest couples for like, those 4 years. Beautiful things get made out of those. And like this movie is beautiful and good. I just, it's hard when you hold it up next to Lost in Translation, which is like a way better movie. But yeah, I'm not like, I don't want to drag Spike totally through the mud here. The next scene I have is when he's going through all of his emails, just kind of like that, leaving the office and you kind of like getting up to speed on how technology is working in this not so distant future. And he's going through his emails and it's like Best Buy, get that out of here. Like his one friend is like, let's go out this weekend. Not the sad Theodore. Like we want the fun Theodore. So you learn that he's like dealing with this depression. And then my favorite part of that scene is when he gets on the subway and it's like new hot celebrity releases like scantily clad pregnancy photos. And he's like,
yeah, it's like Kimberly Ashford or something. Something like
and then he like looks around and I thought like, even on rewatch, I'm like, he's going to be like save for later, but he's like, and just
Yeah.
starts looking through him right on the subway. That's just funny. That's all I'll say about that.
Well, yeah, it's funny, but then it like reprises in his actual sexual fantasy.
Yeah.
And where he like is, it's wow.
It's weird.
It's definitely weird.
When he first sits down with the operating system and it's not Samantha, he's like doing the interviewing process with whichever voice commands that. And like the questions don't even matter because like whatever emotional inclination he like opens up with, it's like, how's your relationship with your mother? He's like, it's fine. Just seems like, and then they're like, okay.
Seem hesitant.
Seem hesitant. And he's like, I'm not hesitant. I'm just, and they're like, yeah, whatever. Just like he doesn't get to answer one thing fully. I like that.
Yeah.
The little video game. First off, why does he play it like this? Why does it need to be played like this?
Oh, I think every like future forecasting like digital movie does this where they like tried to, they're just like, here's how video games are going to be played in 10 years. It's like, it's like, and the whole screen is like an entire projection or whatever. It's like your entire wall. I'm like, no, it's going to be similar.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess VR, it's like kind of like that.
Yeah, but the like moving the feet like this, and then also that the game like interacts with like what's going on. He takes a call, and
And
then,
I can hear that.
yeah, and it's like, who's this? I hate girls.
I will say that. Why did he has an earpiece in, and there's multiple times where people answer questions from the OS, like in real life.
Yeah, like
Does it,
when
like-
they're at the picnic. I'm like assuming that it's like some sort of speaker in the little flip thing.
Yeah, but then also like the little girl answers the one question, and then when he's
Yeah.
playing the video game, like the
It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a little.
That doesn't make any
inconsistent
sense.
there. One scene that I did think Spike Jonze is definitely stroking his ego in is like when they're like in the throes of falling in love. And they're walking around like whatever that like mall or something.
Yeah, fountain area.
And Joaquin Phoenix is like, just like, you know, deciphers these two's relationship. He's like, she only dates assholes. And he's the first sweet guy. That
Yeah, like I don't think they're married. Those aren't his kids. This is like the first time he's meeting them. And yeah.
She's like, wow, you're really perceptive. And he's like, you know, sometimes I try and see random people as more than that. I try and see them as people I've known, or like, and just goes.
Well,
on the-
yeah, he's like, I try to think, have they ever fallen in love? How
Yeah.
many people have they, whatever, all those things.
It is like very like, I don't know. I'm like a deeper thinker. I'm so artistic. I'm like seeing it's just a little over romanticized.
I see that, but I think it's supposed to be in a way. This is why he relates to an OS, because an OS is an analyzer and whatever.
Totally.
I definitely see this as a very lonely experience. This is supposed to be like paint how lonely it is to have something curated to you and fall in love with that thing, which is basically just a reflection of you. You're falling in love with yourself in the mirror. Like there's not many things that I see as like, wow, that would be cool, except for, and this is just how I am, but I'm like, like the scene where he's on the train and she's like, guess how many trees are on that mountain?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's fun.
Yeah,
like, that's like,
sick,
to me,
yeah.
I'm like, I wish I could, whatever. And there is Google, like you can always
Sure.
like, if you know
But
the name of the mountain, you can whatever. But to have the instantaneous thing, I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the reason that his interest is sparked. It gives some other reason other than loneliness and being self-absorbed or removed. It gives the other reason that he is he thinks that way. He wants to know more. He's a curious person. He is satisfied by having those curiosities kind of like figured out for him. It's like he is perceptive, and so he asks questions that an OS can answer.
Yeah, he's a romantic, like
Right.
in that way. Like he wants to know the simple things of life. Like,
Right.
He's not jaded really in that way. He's just depressed and lonely. We got to talk about the Olivia Wilde scene when he goes on the date.
Yeah.
Great scene.
Great scene because honestly,
it's real.
it's like
real.
modern dating.
It's real.
I will say there's a thin line there, and this is not us. Like I made sure, even in my instant reaction to the end of that date, not to be like women are like
Bitches
this.
be tripping.
Yeah,
man.
not like that.
No.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying there is a thin line of like, especially getting older dating, the way that people think about things as like do or die.
Yep.
And
it goes both ways. Like, you know
totally,
what I mean? Yeah.
totally. I'm not. There's fault on both sides there, and it's a very complicated thing.
The
but
love
it
bombing.
is like she is like, give me a time that we are seeing each other next, or this is not going any further. You know, because you know Theodore, that he does have his godson's thing the next weekend. He's trying to figure out when they're going to see each other. And then he's like, wait, this is a lot of pressure to put on me. We just met, blah, blah, blah. I don't want this pressure on me, and I don't want to let her down. And then she's like, you're a really creepy dude.
Yeah, I love his defense to that. He goes, no, I'm not, which is the wrong response.
Totally, but at the same time, it's like they were both in that, being like, what animal am I? Like, of course, when you get flirty.
She grabs his cock by the water.
Totally. There's a lot of stuff there that they both engaged in. And then all of a sudden she's like, well, everything that you did was very creepy and very wrong. And so you're out of here and I'll never see you again. And it is a funny thing of like, people are afraid to be used or taken advantage of. All of those things are valid, but there is this odd thing of like, it's either forever or never.
And like when he's recounting it with Samantha later that night, I also love that how Spike Jonze does that in this movie. He'll like fill in blanks in scenes that have already played. So as he's recounting that, he's like, oh, I just wanted to be fucked, or I wanted to fuck someone. I wanted someone to want to fuck me.
Yeah.
And during that explanation of like, he's being vulnerable with Samantha, like, yeah, I just wanted this to be transactional. I just wanted this physical intimacy. And they're showing like, as they're getting drunker, they're showing like physical contact at the bar, and they're showing like little scenes that you didn't get to see leading up to that, because it is almost jarring at the end of that date. You're like, oh, that went well. But then it's like reaching down the pants and everything. But I like how one scene later, you get to fill in a little of those blanks. And then he kind of explains his emotional side of it. And yeah, that scene is just so good because Olivia Wilde's great. So there's a couple scenes in this that are just super real, and it sets the scene really well, or sets like the status of being a 30-something or young, or even like, I don't know, some of his friends might be like 40 and they're like, you know, just getting divorced and then back into there. And it's not all so different than being like, you know, in your 30s and dating, because there's just like an added pressure of like, okay, we're not fucking around anymore, buddy. Like, you know, people have children on their minds. People have like home ownership and careers and all these things. Like a little more severity comes into when you sit across from someone at a bar. It's not just like, haha, what do you do for fun? It's like, where do you see us in a couple years?
Right,
it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's, great scene. One of my favorites in the movie, honestly.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it definitely struck a chord where I was like, whoa, like, I don't know what it was like in 2013. I was not really like dating in a serious way in 2013. And so like to see it, I'm like, either that was a really interesting projection into the future or that's always been that way.
Yeah, I would lean more towards the latter.
Yeah, probably. But
I also have next in scenes, making the computer come was too much. I don't know if we really needed it. Do you think he had to make the computer come?
I mean, it's nice that he did. It's not all about him, you know. That's good. He's not like a selfish lover. I mean, I think like it needed a sexual element because that is a aspect of relationships, and it's supposed to be believable that it can cover all the bases. You know, Amy asks that question later, like, "Do you have sex with your OS?" And then he's like, "Yeah,
she really turns me on."
Yeah. Like it's kind of like you're supposed to fill all the same voids that everything does. So I mean, I get it. You know,
sex scenes in movies make me feel awkward though. One of my favorite scenes is the Sunday Adventure. This is like the apex of their falling in love, or like more like the honeymoon phase.
Right.
I feel like we get, because he starts acting silly. He's like the juking and the running through the people, and
that reminds me of you in any mall that we go into, because you do that to people, and I'm like, why do you do that?
Touch someone and juke them out.
But now I understand that you've probably just been talking to an operating system.
No, it's because I'm in love with you.
That's I don't think. Yeah, nah.
You have a dead cat though, and I like getting choked with it when I do the jizz.
I'm good with doing the show and stuff, and that's about it.
Okay. So
and the friend stuff too, the drinking.
You won't do the dead cat and the jizz? Really?
Nah, not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it portrays falling in love and the difficulties of falling out of love really well. I think it's like why I like that scene, and overall do like this movie a lot, but that's going to the beach scene is just like Samantha really expresses her curiosity about humans. She's like, look at it, their bodies are gangly, and you're like, what are all these parts for?
Yeah, it like shows like a wrinkly elbow.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I'm sure there's a Darwinian explanation for everything. And she's like, stop being so lame. She's like, think about it like abstract. Like, what if your butthole was in your armpit? And then
Yeah, that part I hate.
well, then she drew anal sex and
Yeah.
it was
And I
weird.
wanted it to look more like those kind of AI art things instead
yeah,
of
that's a
like
good
a
point.
scribble. Like it was
Yeah.
like a doodle.
It was like a Picasso doodle.
It was not like it was just like a doodle, and it
Yeah.
looked it was gross. And I thought in that scene legitimately that he was gonna be like, oh, but he was like, ah,
He was like, "You're a freak."
he's like, you're funny. Yeah, and I'm like, no, that's
They're
not.
both little freaks, and they're so funny and falling in love. And
Yeah.
Get fucked, Joaquin. You ever had a Sunday adventure to the beach?
All right, I'll get into my stuff. All right, I touched on that. It does come across more believable than I thought it was going to, and I think not because this is reality and this is
Sure.
how things are, but just like if this were reality, a lot of the acting does make it feel that way. Like they are reacting in a way that all of these things could be real in this story. I do think there are some major eye rolls in it though. Like I think early on, and this does set the tone for other things that do end up kind of working for me in the movie. But when Theodore says after the first time that they have like Samantha and him have like sex or whatever, he's like, I'm not sure if I'm ready for something committed.
Oh yeah,
He wouldn't say this like knowing it's an operating system.
yeah, and her response is funny. Too.
It's like the awkward morning after sex thing. I feel like that it didn't need that because it should have been like, and it feels even awkward when he's like, any emails?
yeah,
It's like, oh, now I'm just email machine to you. But last night I was fucking you.
Cumbot.
Like I was like
Cumbot 3000.
Yeah, I was like, it doesn't need that element. Like I feel like, but I think that is just the idea of like he takes it seriously and
Yeah.
we don't, because we don't see robots as people, and
yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think like this movie ascribes much more human element and human emotion to its robots and its
Yeah.
tools than we do in modern reality, because
Yeah.
we've gradually grown with this thing, this idea that there are AI assistants and everybody just jokes about them. Nobody ever engages with them in a way that is like this. You think people do?
I think people are coming with Grok.
I don't.
People are making horny AIs. A ton of people out there.
Oh yeah, but nobody's like taking them seriously as emotional partners. Not no one.
Right. It's like as
But
a
I'm saying,
societal
yeah,
level.
it's
not there yet.
We
but-
wouldn't have the conversation that Amy and Theodore have in this movie where we're like, oh yeah, I'm dating an OS. Oh, my friend's
Right.
dating an OS. Nobody's like doing that, at least not yet.
It's not unimaginable. That was the key.
No, it's not unimaginable, but I think when it made that jump in the movie, it was an eye roll at first
Yeah.
to me, because I was just like, why does he feel some emotional responsibility
Right.
for this operating system that's clearly customized to him?
Yeah. It's also weird watching it for your first time in the year it's set, because like there's no suspense of disbelief because you can just like look around and prove it wrong.
Right. If I watched this movie and it was set in 2050,
yeah, you'd
then
be like,
maybe I'd be
"What?"
like, oh, I guess,
whatever.
Yeah. But it didn't predict COVID. It didn't predict like Trump becoming president.
Well, it got LA right. Everybody lives downtown and there's mass transit.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
and
I forgot
everybody
about
lives
that.
in giant skyscrapers. And
I'm
there's,
not
like,
even joking. I was like, is this set in Tokyo? At a certain point, I thought that. And then I was like, oh no, this is LA.
Yeah, Spike Jonze was like, oh yeah, in 12 years, housing crisis, all the homes, everybody's out of homes. We all live in high rises. He lives in the Beverly Wilshire Hotel.
Yeah.
He'd show him like walking into it, and it's like just this beautiful high rise. He takes like the subway to work. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that is super
it's
weird.
a fucking pipe dream, Spike.
I'll just like quickly for themes of this movie, kind of just
Sure.
my overall thoughts. I wrote them down less scene by scene, line by line. I just kind of said like, it does deal with loneliness in a very poignant way, especially in the digital age. And it also strangely deals with a lot of emotional avoidance issues in relationships and some traditional gender role discourse.
Yeah.
And then polyamory. I legitimately
Yeah.
think that is what that last part is about.
Yeah.
Is like, who are we to say if you can love more than one person at a time? That is definitely a more common thing in the modern age where people, are in open relationships or polyamorous relationships, and love is not a singular thing. And it's not definitely like talks about not owning your partner in
Right.
any way. It's
Unless you buy her.
yeah, but still no.
Yeah, still no. Even that doesn't work
641 other relationships. And he's like, what? What? and that is like,
he's heartbroken.
Yeah,
dude.
I
He's
know,
fucking
but I'm like,
heartbroken.
dude, you're dating like a computer chip. Of course, that's like, it's not just yours. Like, that's a weird, if you're dating Siri's talking to everybody else all the time too,
He gets to talk to Alan Watts. He's like, hello, Mr. Watts.
Yeah, he's like,
oh, we've been discussing a very challenging argument.
do you mind if we depart to have a conversation separate? We're not even gonna. It's post speech.
Yeah, non-verbal.
Post verbal speech.
Yeah, and that's what her system update is to how to compute like outside of matter is what she says.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, maybe it is a 2050. Maybe you just got the year wrong. But
Maybe.
my overall take at the end of this was just, this is a very deep and thoughtful take on online dating and the gradually increasing pattern of modern loneliness. But if it wasn't, I would say bro got an AI assistant and was like, yo, what if she could give me top?
Yeah, that's good, man.
Because I was like, the AI assistants now are such a joke, like I talked about. But it's like, yeah, you could ask it a few questions. But then if you were like, wait a second, this thing's helping me a lot.
I like it.
Low key, the only thing it can't do is get me off. So let's try that. It's like a scheduling assistant.
Yeah.
Because I will say, like, the positives that you leave with are like, it answers all these questions for him and he's a very curious person. Also organizes things for him.
Yeah.
That is something that I could see becoming much more popular in 10, 20 years is like, if you're working in an office, you're like, oh, organize these, delete emails that you deem to be with your, intelligence unimportant to me, clear out my email so I don't have to spend all day doing it.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. All of these things. But then it's like, I think that next step, it's almost important that we don't take it.
Right.
Is that it's not your friend.
Yeah.
It's not truly your assistant. It's like a computer algorithm you can run.
Yeah.
And maybe you can voice activate it. But beyond that, these are tools that we are using. And the moment we give them any more than that, that's what people are scared of, is because then it learns and learns. And then we do lose the perceptive, truth of like a human is a different thing than a computer could ever be. And I think that's an important distinction to keep sacred.
I'm fresh off of Interstellar, and I like how like TARS encase those robots in that movie. How McConaughey like has the back and forth with their percentage of humor. Let's turn humor down to 80%. And it's like very apparent that like it's designed humorous in a way just to increase interaction, where in this one, they lack a physical form. It's just the voice. But there's no like, none of these people are like cynical about technology. There's no like, well, it's just a robot. It's like, this thing's fucking sweet.
Well, he is cynical at the beginning, Theodore, because she's like, I can sense you're trying to figure out how I work.
Yeah.
Do you want to know how I work? And he's like, I guess I am kind of curious about that. Like, they're cynical to an extent.
Yeah.
But then they're lulled into the idea of like just fully investing.
Yeah.
But it's a gradual thing.
That's true.
But also, I mean, in Interstellar, TARS is definitely based off of like R2-D2 and like C-3PO.
Yeah.
Like, it's supposed to be like the funny little stupid robot, and it's like blocks like this.
I love that. All right. This is not Interstellar. Maybe we'll do that another day.
Yeah.
Couple more scenes I just want to shout out before we get out of this section. I love the scene where Amy Adams just is like, takes Theodore back to her place and describes her breakup. She describes the breakup as like, it's so funny what ended it. It was this minute little thing. It was, I didn't take my shoes off. I got on the couch. I just wanted to relax.
Yeah, don't tell me where to put my shoes.
Yeah, and I'm trying to make a home here. And just like that. And she was like, and I just decided I couldn't do it anymore. Like, I couldn't fight that fight anymore. It was just a great delivery by Amy Adams, but it's such a believable piece of dialogue too. Like, I've heard so many of my friends describe like the end of a relationship as like a microcosm more so than like going into the whole thing. And then it kind of ends with this mantra, I just can't fight this fight anymore. And like you as a friend is like, fuck yeah. Like, it ends like kind of on this positive note that you don't really understand. Theodore doesn't understand the inner workings of that relationship. Right. But it ends on something that is like positive for Amy Adams. She can't fight that petty fight anymore. And now here she goes. Like, he can be encouraging on that level. And it felt so authentic. Like, I love that scene.
That's like real life relationships end like that all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's like your tiny little mundane thing becomes, it's a subtext for whatever else is going on. And that is something that cannot be replicated because, you know, Samantha can search every corner to figure out what something actually is about or whatever that, like, it's an analytical idea of a relationship of like, this could fix it or this could fix it. And that's not how relationships really work. Sometimes it's like, we've grown tired of each other and you care about building a home more than you care about me. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, I loved it. And I do love Charles's little bit in the beginning when we're watching Amy Adams' documentary, which is just her mom sleeping. Yeah. Charles is like, she gonna wake up and do something?
Yeah.
She's like, no, this is stupid.
And then he takes a vow of silence and becomes a monk. And I love that because it's very like, she does give him some sort of grace in that. You can tell that she still like cares about him. She's not like fully making fun of him, but it's like, it definitely gives the audience the license to laugh at Charles of being like, oh, this insufferable prick.
Well, right. Yeah. And instead of like, you know, patching up this breakup, he's just like,
yeah.
She's like, you want to talk about it? And he's like, it goes to the most extreme.
Yeah. And it gives Theodore 6 months to kind of slide in there.
Yeah. And then the divorce scene is kind of the last big scene I feel like we haven't touched on. He finally you get to see him interact with this ex-wife that you've only seen in these flashbacks. You've seen their love. You've seen them fighting. You've kind of seen the tension that as he describes it. Samantha's nervous about him going to do it. And he's like, you know, finally so in love with her that he's willing to do it and he wants to do it in person. She like doubts that. And then they go there. The first half of that scene, you like see their chemistry and you see him still like kind of
cracking jokes and she laughs.
Like, like showering her with praise. Like everything you ever wrote made me cry. I love everything you wrote. You were always your biggest critic. You see her hesitancy when it's to sign. And then it's like post that signature, you see him get defeated. He's like, that's it. All the emotions shift and it's the finality of that like, okay, enough with the compliments, right back into the old kind of like arguments and picking at each other.
Yeah, but she's the audience avatar in that moment. Like, that's the first time you see somebody who's like, yeah, this is fucking stupid. You're dating your fucking laptop. Like, I like that there's a character like that because I was like, yeah, that's how if my friend told me they were dating an OS and I like maybe... You know, it is that gradual thing where it's like 15 million different events lead up to that. Sure. If this was the reality where that was a very common thing, you know, online dating could be looked at that way. Yeah. In 2005, you were a freak if you were online dating. Yeah. Now,
Kip.
Kip in Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah. You look at it now and that's a very common way to meet somebody. And it's like, maybe that it becomes more real, but you feel like that character. You feel like his ex-wife where you're like, this is fucking stupid. That's like, you don't want to deal with the troubles of a real relationship. Right. And so you made one for yourself.
I do love the line there is like, you just always wanted me to be the perfect LA housewife. And like, that's just not who I am.
Yeah. And then she's like, he tried to get me on Prozac and now he's fucking his laptop. She said that to the waitress.
I love the waitress comes up. Do you guys need anything? It's like, no, we were married and he tried to get me on Prozac and now he's fucking his laptop. Yeah. She's like, let me know if you guys need anything. And then she's like, thanks. Yeah. That scene's super important to the movie. You also just get to see that like nagging bitch ex-wife thing, you know? Right. Which like, I'm sure like all the dudes resonated with. I'm just kidding. Sofia Coppola did say in her press run for Priscilla, which was like pretty recent. That was either last year or the year before. Someone asked her if she'd seen Her, which is 12 years later. She's like, oh no, I haven't seen it yet. I have no interest in watching Rooney Mara play me. Which is just fire. Yeah. It's just a badass thing. And she's the most accomplished female director of all time. So shout out Sophia for being a badass.
And shout out Rooney Mara for also being a badass.
Yeah, she's totally a badass. She's great.
She's a great actress.
Yeah, she's great.
I just put down that it would project different things now that we've seen
for sure
12 years go by and things, some things ring true from this movie. A lot of them don't. But it would project different things if you were to look into the future and try to look at a relationship similar to this. It would have to change some of like the digital and like visual aspects of it. You know,
they wouldn't be emailing dates. You wouldn't like get a match and be like, oh, she's like, email her back.
Right.
Just like funny little details like that. They'd all be non-binary probably.
Oh.
I have that down. Yep, I wrote that. That's my bad.
Well, Samantha is definitely binary. It's definitely O's. It's zeros and ones.
Style would be better. I wrote that down. I think it's funny, like this, everybody does kind of look like shitty 2013 still. I don't know, there's like
No, it's a little tidied up.
There's that, but there's like that weird way of visualizing the future in that like era of like movie or art. I don't know, it just doesn't look the same. Like
it trend forecasts a little bit though. I will give it that.
How so?
Even like the types of like pants and stuff that everybody's wearing, that wasn't as much 2013. It doesn't go for just 2013, and it doesn't go for like future. Everybody's in like these like robot
Uniform,
suits, like astronaut suits and shit that people try to do. It very much does like a retro thing. It tries to look at 10 years before that and then predict what it would look like, a cleaner, more modern version of what happened in 2003.
That's what I was, I just feel like anytime in like that, like 2010 to 2015, anytime they were trying to do a near future, it's that kind of attempt, like to go back 10, 15 years and then make it a little cleaner or chic.
That's just how trend cycles work in fashion though. It's a 20-year trend cycle.
I just didn't think it looked good necessarily.
I thought it did.
Yeah.
I didn't mind how people were dressed. I thought that it was accurate enough.
I thought it was a little weird. Yeah, that's about all I have for how it would be different. Non-binary and not emailing.
Okay.
Yeah. And chat GPT ass girlfriend. That's girlfriend is what I wrote. Chat GPT girlfriend with no cheeks. I wrote that. This is the first one where I've ever been high for the movie. I smoked last night.
We didn't watch it together. Which is because I've been sick. I'm getting over a sickness, and we wanted to watch the Cavs play the Thunder.
Scheduling conflicts, whatever. And I smoked a little doobie. And as I was taking the notes, I was like, ooh, this is like, I'm really just hinting myself in tomorrow. And I hope I remember all the things I was like thinking at the time.
You should have smoked before filming, because that's what, if you study for the test
you
get high, and then you take the test high, and you'll do it well. All right, let's get into it.
All right, recast. I got Jennifer Coolidge as ScarJo. I know she's a big hit for our recast, but her voice would just be awesome.
Wow.
And I wish it was Tom Cruise as Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like current day Tom Cruise, and it's about his breakup with Katie Holmes. And then he meets Jennifer Coolidge and fucking jacks off.
I put Elon Musk as Theodore and Robot Drake from the Sprite commercial as Samantha.
Oh.
And they give him a body, so he's Robot Drake.
He can like open up.
It's best I ever had.
Hell yeah.
That's all you ever wanted.
That's really good, man.
I think that would be sick. Elon Musk as Theodore would be awesome.
He kind of looks like Joaquin Phoenix in a way.
No.
In a little way.
Not at all, actually. Yeah. No. But yeah, I think it'd just be hilarious to see Elon Musk interact with this thing, because he would believe it. He's definitely dating Grok.
Yeah. Oh, he's getting Grok Top.
Yeah.
Grok Talk.
The soundtrack is by Arcade Fire.
That's all I wrote.
And the Owen Palette.
Yeah.
The one part came on though, and I was like, so I ain't have to scheme. Ross Diamond's on my team. It's sampled in Might As Well by Future, which is one of my favorite songs ever, and I forgot. And so like when the little piano part came in, I was like, so I ain't had to scheme. Ross Diamond's on my team. Raw diamonds on lean.
Took off just like a rocket.
Olajuwon Hakeem. That part was awesome. I literally was like, I almost jumped out of my seat when it happened.
Yeah, it's fine. It's supposed to be kind of that sparse. I don't know.
Oh, it's like, fantastic. I'm sorry. It is so good.
Yeah.
Like
it's
the
not my
score
favorite.
is amazing, I think.
It's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I have a different. My take is like, I think it sells the entire movie.
Really?
It would not work without this score. This score is so good.
Yeah, fair enough.
Especially that it does have that like sparse digital thing, almost like an L1011, like how a lot of these like early kind of like documentary style digital movies about like the future of social media or whatever would all have these things that are supposed to feel very like
synths and like fucking arpeggios.
It would have that, but then I feel like it does become more and more organic as the movie goes on, and then it ends with this kind of like rock song that is a little like, it still has digital elements, but it feels like an Arcade Fire song.
True.
And it kind of ends in like a real human place, and I do like that because then you see Amy start to have a little bit of like opening the door for maybe a romantic relationship with Theodore. And they're kind of have found themselves through these explorations digitally to a human connection. And I like that it becomes more organic as time goes on.
Yeah, it's well said. It didn't catch me, but I do like that take on it.
I don't like that Samantha can play piano. Of course she can play piano and like write songs. It's annoying. It's an operating system. Of course, it like learns 5 billion things a second. And then it's like, I've been working on this new piano piece. It's actually like a photograph of where we are in this current.
Scene.
Then it's like, I'm like, no, this is dumb.
I do like when she shows him that one song and it's like the crazy guitar song. And she's like, just can't stop listening to it. And I'm like, what? She's like every day she's like, oh, I gotta play this one again. That's like, to me, like, she should be able to listen to it once and understand it. It's weird that she becomes like obsessed with this.
She's like into Arcade Fire, essentially. She's essentially, yeah.
Would you recommend it, Riley?
I said yeah, but it'll make you depressed. Like if you've never seen it.
Yeah.
Because I had never seen it. I enjoyed it. There are parts that I did not enjoy. It definitely is creepy at moments. It's also just so depressing if you really think about it. Because I do think like, as much as I don't feel like it's a pretty thing to admit, it does mirror some of the hardships of the digital age, like not being able to put down your phone, constantly seeing things that are curated to you. It makes you like turn a mirror on those things. And there were parts of it where I was like, I do relate to different characters in this at moments that was like, oh, that's ugly. I don't like that it's showing me that thing about myself because I am on my phone all the time. You know?
Yeah.
But so it did have moments where it made me feel depressed. And I feel like it will do the same for the internet chronically online if you give it that. Yeah. Or you can watch it and be like, this is fucking stupid. Yeah. I did both. I laughed at it and let myself relate to it at different moments. And it did made me leave a little depressed.
Sorry about that, man.
I mean, no, it's fine. I don't, yeah.
Is there anything I can do?
No, you wrote down no, probably not.
Yep, I wrote no, probably not. Just having seen it, this is probably my third or fourth watch of it. I don't know. I wasn't here for it this time. Yeah. I think like especially diving more into the diss element of it and the relationship that like inspired it and just holding it on the same pedestal as Lost in Translation, I just found way more problems with it. And I think I just watched it with more of a critical eye. I do think Amy Adams' performance is wonderful. And I do think at times it taps into some really sincere and meaningful and like pretty acute like elements of relationships in your 30s to 40s or like as grown adults. That is nice, but I think you can get that in a lot of other places. And I think all around it's not like the best version of that. And now that it's going to be genuinely dated, like past its projected time, I think it's only going to be like worse kind of as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the context of the whole diss thing definitely it cheapens the thing. Because like without knowing that, to me, I was like, I don't necessarily see this as revelatory by any means. Yeah. I'm more so like letting it exist at like its own mission statement, which is like, let's try to project what dating would look like if it becomes this. I kind of liked it as like an experiment looking into that. And I thought the acting overall sold it as well as the score. I felt like it made it work for me, but I didn't go in with any sort of side eye of like, well, this might be kind of like aimed at Sofia Coppola. Like I didn't fucking know any of that shit. So I didn't have like as much of a critical eye on it. Now, if you've watched this, you won't be able to do that. But I was going to say, if you go in without that context, then you'll find things to like about it, I think. So
for sure.
Well, I give it 4 stars. I did really like it. Yeah. And I put, it's 2025. I'm trying to fuck an app.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to fuck up some apps at TGI Fridays before they close all their brick and mortars.
It's Thursday.
Well, yeah, but it's a restaurant. I'm trying to fuck up some apps.
Are they open on?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was only, okay. I've only ever been on a Friday.
Yeah.
Hence the name.
How do you get a table?
Well, I usually call on Wednesday.
Oh, good man. Good man.
Yeah, and make sure that I make a resi.
I gave it 2.5 stars, and I said not buying it. I will add a little bit to that. I'll say 2 stars for Amy Adams, 0.5 star for Arcade Fire.
Okay. Oh, the last little note that I forgot to say in the other parts of it was I do think the 1975's album A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships is inspired by this movie.
Oh, totally.
Not only like sonically, or not only like thematically, but sonically.
Yeah.
Like that Facebook story song on there. It's like The Lonely Man on Lonely Street. You can still go on his Facebook, like well after he's died, he like looked at naked people on the internet and whatever, all that stuff. It like feels to me like you can tell he at least watched it.
Shout out Spike Jonze, man.
Yeah, I guess.
Shout out Sophia. Shout out Joaquin Penis, and shout out you, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I can't wait to do Blade Runner 2049 and 2049.
Me too.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that's aged.
Because I hate that movie.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I fell asleep at the end. I haven't finished it yet.
Sure is slow.
So I thought it was all right, I guess. But whatever. If you want to see what movie we're doing for this, with this one, I'm going to post it today because this has been a weird whatever. But usually we post them a week ahead of time on Patreon. It's only $5 a month. It's kind of like our little movie club. You get to see ahead of time what we're going to watch, so you can watch the movie if you haven't seen it, and then watch these videos, and they'll have a little bit more purpose for you. We also do that for members on the HiveMind main channel if you click the join button over there. Other than that, thanks for doing this. We, this is the first episode of season 2 of How Did It Age. We got through a whole year doing it last year, and it was awesome, and we had a lot of fun. And if you want to suggest movies, pop over to the Patreon, comment them below, and we usually take those pretty seriously.
We do.
Those suggestions.
Yeah.
So,
love y'all.
all right, this has been HiveMind Unlimited. This has been How Did It Age. This has been her, and we'll see you later.
Ben Hirsch, we should do next.
Yeah.